Hello, everyone. This is my first intervention. I will be answering to the first question. Are Brexit and the United States recent protectionism actions and policies an example of regionalism failure? Yes, no, and why? Well, first let's explain the current situation of Britain. Since they joined the European Union, they have been wondering if it was a right decision. It is not the first time that Britain wants to leave the European Union. However, they are doing it now. Why is that? Well, when you're part of a community as the European Union, you do not only share the same benefits on barriers and trade, but you also have to face the consequences when a country is having a crisis. So you have to help them. These crises have been affecting Britain highly because they are suffering from immigration, since people from the countries that are having crisis, they are going to Britain, and they are affecting the people in Britain with them losing their jobs. So that's like a main problem they are facing right now. They also feel they have no control over the economic over their economy. So they want to leave the European Union. However, they know the consequences. They are really afraid of them. So they are now on a process of deciding how to leave the European Union. Because leaving the European Union will mean that they are left alone and they won't be able to negotiate with countries that are part of the European Union, losing opportunities for its people to study abroad and to work abroad as well. Also, the people that are currently studying or living in countries part of the European Union, they will be suffering the consequences like on real time, because they will have to leave and come back to Britain. That's why Britain is now in a period of negotiations with the European Union about what rules, barriers, and benefits will remain for both parties and which will be left behind, and and how those agreements will affect not only Britain but also the European Union. Now, in my opinion, I think the Brexit is a regionalism failure because even though Britain was part of one of the most powerful and the only community that has complete economic integration, they were facing the downside of these policies. That's why they want to leave. That's when I think that regionalism needs to be renewed, and they need to organize and decide how these countries will not be affected as much on those situations as helping other countries overcome crises. So it is clear that countries need each other to negotiate and maintain the world economy, but when there is a central bank which decides how to use the money and resources of every country for the benefit of only one that is in crisis, it's impossible to not feel like it's not fair. And that's why I understand Britain's decisions. However, regionalism is necessary, and Britain cannot survive using protectionism practices and deciding to make everything on their own, because it is not only about goods and services, it is also about opportunities for the people to go abroad, to work and study, and I think that a complete economic integration is just too much. So there is no way all countries can agree on everything and not be affected by the decisions of a few. Now, talking about the US protectionism actions, after reading what has been happening and the analysis of economists, I think President Donald Trump is obsessed with the trade deficit. The United States has, however, a trade deficit. It is not bad. It's not a bad thing for a country, especially a country like the United States. It is not a secret that Americans love their stuff and they just buy a lot of things. That's why there is such wide variety options in their market. The United States does not specialize on making clothes or producing food because they simply are not that good at doing those things. They do specialize on making, for example, plane turbines, medicine, and guns. Also, they export a lot of intellectual property, such as music, movies, reality TV shows, articles, and so on. Services contribute the majority to the US economy net income. China, in contrast, doesn't export nearly as many services as it does manufactured goods. So the president's obsession with trade deficits is not always popular, with critics damning the administration moves as a protectionism. I think that protectionism actions that Donald Trump is imposing are definitely a regionalism failure because US companies could get a boost a demand with highs and higher and bigger profits, but the U.S. economies will need new materials, and companies that need raw materials like car and aeroplane makers will see their costs rise because they will need to use more money to produce those goods. That means they might have to put up the prices on their finished products. That will hurt a lot the customers. So car prices could go up in the US, as could prices on gadgets, plane tickets, and even beer. The price of making a can could rise. It will not only affect US and China, but also they could affect the people around the world, especially since China has retail. The world's second largest economy has taxed U.S. agricultural and industrial products from soybean, pork, cotton, and aeroplanes, cars, and steel pipes. It had also pledged to take necessary countermeasures over Trump's latest proposed tariffs. In theory, China could also tax the U.S. tech companies like Apple, and that will hit the tech giant, and it could be forced to raise its prices to compensate. So a global trade war could hurt consumers around the world, but making it harder for all companies to operate and to negotiate, forcing them to push higher prices onto their customers. In addition, the Republican Party is also overwhelmingly against President Trump on tariffs. They are big supporters of free trade, and they think that Trump's decision to take on China could lead to adverse effects for consumers in the US and in China, but also worldwide. An economy showdown between the world's biggest economies doesn't look good for anyone. In my opinion, I think it is a huge example of regionalism failure because President Trump does not consider regionalism to be necessary for its economy. He thinks that making everything on their own will be an easy solution for the deficit that he is so worried about. As a result, it could make America weaker as they won't be able to have the stability and availability of everything cheaper as they have now. They will be making everything at higher cost, affecting the consumers and companies a lot. This is my first intervention. I will be looking forward to your response. Thank you.